Shalom. We're continuing melachim Aleph. We are in Perek Yud. We are going over the different encounters of Eliyahu Hanavi with Achav. And again, it's an interesting question. I don't have a complete mahalach. Obviously, Eliyahu Hanavi is a person who is able to do great miracles. He determines if there's Geshem or not Geshem, even though that's a key, a mafteach that is only given to, that Hashem only keeps for himself. But Eliyahu Hanavi was given the mafteach of Geshamim, and Eliyahu Hanavi was even given the mafteach of Tchias HaMesim. And yet, when it comes to himself, Achav wants to kill him. Eliyahu Hanavi has to go hiding and all sorts of surreptitious places. I mean, l'chayra, why can't he just go to Achav and Hashem will protect him? But apparently, Eliyahu Hanavi himself has to go through different inyanim of hishtadlus, and therefore he has been in hiding. But at this point, after 2 years, in the middle of the third year of no rain, Hashem now tells him to go to Eliyahu Hanavi, go to Achav. Vayihi yamim rabim. It was a long time, 2 whole years, and into the third year. Udavar Hashem haya el Eliyahu v'shana hashlishis lemor. It was the third year of the famine. And Hashem said to Eliyahu Hanavi, Lech heira'eh el Achav. Go and show yourself to Achav. V'yetne matar al pnei ha'adama. Because now we are ready to bring the Jewish people to tshuva, and then they will get their rain. Vayelech Eliyahu lehira'ot al Achav. Eliyahu Hanavi went to go be seen by Achav. V'arav chazak b'Shomron. The Ra'av was very strong, particularly in Shomron, which was the capital of Malchei Yisrael. Vayikra Achav el Ovadyo asher labayis v'Ovadyo hayoyares Hashem miyod. So now we're given a little bit of a backstory. Achav had a servant in charge of his household, and the servant's name was Ovadyahu or Ovadja, which literally means servant of God. And indeed, many Mandaomrim and Chazal say this is none other than the Navi Ovadja that has a sefer in Tanakh, in the Trei Asar. And Ovadja was Yarei Es Hashemite, a tremendous praise. He was extremely Yarei Shemayim, Ad Kedei Mesiras Nefesh, even though he lived in a Seviva of Avodah Zarah, and even though he worked for such an evil king and queen, he was Yarei Es Hashem. And what did he do? We are told for the first time that one of the evil things of Izebel was she simply killed out many of the Nevi'im of Hashem. And yet, he took 100 prophets. He rescued them. He kept them in 2 caves, 15 Nevi'im per cave. V'chilkolam lechem umayim, and he gave them bread and water. So obviously, if he would have been caught, he would have been killed himself. And yet, at great personal risk, he was meiser nefesh to be matzil and to be machalkel 100 neviim. Now, this is before Eliyahu Hanavi shows up. Vayomer Achav el Avadjo. Achav says to Avadjo, Lech bi'aretz el kol mayonei hamayim ve'el kol hanachalim. We're really running out of water. All the rivers, all the streams have dried up. Go and inspect. Go all over Eretz Yisrael. Look at the springs. Look at the streams. Ulai nimtza chatzir unechayesus v'pered. And maybe we could find some grass that's growing that at least our animals, our horses and donkeys could eat. V'lo nachris me'abehema. Because the idea would be that obviously, if the humans can't eat the grass, they're in trouble. But if the animals are able to grow and reproduce because they have grass, then eventually you have meat. So you'll have some food. So let's find at least Michael Behema. Vayichalku lahem es aretz lavarba, and they split the territory. Achav halach b'derech echad levadei. Very interesting. Achav himself went on one path to check out the water supply and the grass, and he went by himself. Ovadyo halach b'derech echad levadei. It's a little strange. Why would a king do this himself? First of all, there's a lot of territory to cover. And does a king go out by himself? It could very well be that, I don't know, this is like what happens in North Korea, these countries. The government doesn't want people to kind of know how bad it is, although they do know how bad it is because they're living through it. And if Achav were to announce a big public expedition to look for grass, people would say, oh, the government's panicking, and maybe there would be a revolt. This way, again, it's hard to understand this because people are starving, but this way, Achav can kind of create the impression, we're doing fine, don't worry about it. Relief is right around the corner. In the meantime, he's panicking, looking for a little grass or a little water. So it has to be surreptitious. Nobody else around. Now maybe Levado doesn't mean he's literally by himself, but certainly it's a very, very small, secretive group. And Ovadja is doing the same thing. Vayihi Ovadyahu baderech, and as Ovadyahu is traveling, V'hine Eliyahu likraso, he bumps into Eliyahu Hanavi. Vayakireyu, he recognizes the Navi. Vayipol al panav, he falls on his face and covered. Vayemer, Ho'ata zeh Adoni Eliyahu, are you the master Eliyahu that was gone? Eliyahu had disappeared for more than 2 years. Vayomer lo ani. Eliyahu Navi said, yeah, I'm the Navi. Lech emor li Adonecha, go and tell your master Achav. Hine Eliyahu, Eliyahu is ready. You've been looking around for me to try to bring the rain. I'm ready to see you. Now Ovadyahu is very frightened here. Vayomer mechatasi, what sin have I committed? Because if I come back to Achav, he's going to kill me. Why is that? So he explains. Chai Hashem Elokecha, I swear by the life of Hashem. There is not a single country in the world that my master hasn't been looking for you. Because he knew that you have the key to the rain. V'yamru ayin. And every place that he looked, they said, you weren't to be found. Eliyahu successfully hid himself. And he made every country and every nation swear that they did not find you. In other words, that they weren't hiding you. Now, you tell me now. I should tell my master Achav. Here is Eliyahu. When I leave you, what's going to happen is Hashem is going to protect you. So I'm going to tell Achav, I have Eliyahu waiting in the desert for you. By the time Achav comes to the desert, a wind of Hashem will carry you away to some unknown place. Ubasi lahagid li Achav, when I tell Achav that you're waiting for him, lo yimtzaka, he will not find you. So Achav will accuse me of mocking him. For haragani, he will kill me. V'yavdecha, yarei es Hashem min urai, but you know, I have feared Hashem from the earliest youth. Hello, who godly Adoni, was it not told to you with Ruach HaKodesh? Eisa Shura Sisi, Barogi Zebel Nevi Hashem, when Zebel killed the prophets of Hashem, V'yachvi Nevi Hashem Meya Ish, I hid 100 prophets of God. Chamishim Ish B'mara, 50 in 2 caves, 50 in 1 cave, 50 in another cave. V'yachaltaleim, and I supported them with lechem umayim. And now you're telling me to go to my master and say, Eliyahu is here for Hargani. He will kill me because you're going to be carried away. So Ovadyahu is very afraid to communicate this to Achav. Vayomer Eliyahu, and Eliyahu says, Chai Hashem Tzavakot, again I make a shvua by the name of Hashem, Asher Amadati Lefanav, that I have always stood before him and worshipped him. Ki hayayim eira elav. This very day I am not going to escape. I am going to be seen by him. Vayelech Ovadyahu likras Achav. So Ovadyahu went to inform Achav. Vayaged lo, and he told Achav that Eliyahu was waiting for him. Vayelech Achav likras Eliyahu. So it's interesting. I mean, one could have done this in a different way. One could have had Eliyahu go to Achav, but apparently it would not be covetic for Eliyahu to go to Achav. So Hashem makes it that Achav comes to Eliyahu via Ovadyahu telling him. Vayehi, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Kiros Achav es Eliyahu, when Achav sees Eliyahu, Vayomer Achav Elav, Achav says to him, Ho'ata zeh ocher Yisrael. Are you the man that has made the life of Yisrael, of Am Yisrael, ocher, dark? You are not such a great person. You are the one that by stopping the rain, you have made every one of Yisrael's life miserable. This is Malchus Yisrael. Vayomer, Eliyahu Hanavi says, Lo acharti es Yisrael. I did not make their lives dark. Ki em ata ubeis avicha, you and your family did it by being chayte umachti es harabim, by the chatoim of avodah zarah. It's because of the sins that you have spread and you have taught and you have followed that all of this has happened. B'yazavchem es mitzvos Hashem, you have forsaken the mitzvos of Hashem, but telech achrei ha'baalim, and you follow the Baal. V'yata, now Eliyahu proposes a test. This is the famous test in Mount Carmel. Shalach kavod Elias kol Yisrael hara Carmel. Gather all of Am Yisrael to Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is around Haifa. V'yes nevi'ei habal arba meis v'chamishim, and bring 450 prophets of the Baal, prophets of Avodah Zarah, obviously false prophets. Unevi'ei Asherah, and then there are other Nevi'im who worship the trees, the Asherah trees, 400. Ochlei Shochan Izebel, and all of them, right? Izebel killed the Nevi'ei Hashem, but on the other hand, the Nevi'im of Avodah Zarah were Ochlei Shochan, they ate at her table. It's interesting, so it mentions the 450 Nevi'ei Habal and the 400 Nevi'ei Asherah, but when we have the actual story, the Nevi'ei Asherah dropped out, and all we have are the Nevi'ei Habal. So I'm not sure how to understand that. The Radak says that it was only the Nevi'ei Asherah that were Ochlei Shulchana, and she did not let them go to Mount Carmel, because she had an intimation that something bad was going to happen to them, and therefore the only ones that went were the 450 Nevi'ei Habal. That is how the Radak learns. Vayishlach Achav b'chol b'nei Yisrael, and Achav gathered the Jewish people, the 10 tribes. Vayikbotz es haNevi'im al Hara Carmel, and the 450 Nevi'ei Habal came to Mount Carmel. Vayigash Eliyahu el Kolam, Eliyahu came to the nation. Vayomer, and he said to them, Ad Masai atem peischim al shtei haseifim. How long are you going to be jumping on either side of the door? Right? There's kind of a door inside to serve Hashem, a door outside, Nevi'ei Habal, and you're going back and forth. Sometimes you serve Hashem, sometimes you serve the Baal. How long are you going to be jumping and not deciding what you believe in? Im Hashem Elokim, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the true God, L'chu acharav, follow Hashem and reject Avodah Zarah. V'yem Habal, and if you believe the Baal is the true God, Chas v'sholom, L'chu acharav. What's going on? Back and forth, back and forth. Don't you believe in anything? V'lai anu ha'am oso davar. Nobody answered anything. They were confused. They didn't know what exactly Eliyahu was asking them to do. Vayomer Eliyahu el ha'am. So now he explains it a little bit more. Ani nosarti Navi Hashem levadi. Izebel has killed virtually all of the Nevi'im. I am the only Navi left. Unevi'ei Habal, but the Nevi'ei Habal are doing great. Arba meyais v'chamisha ish. So let's do a test to see if Hashem is the God or the Baal is the God. Vayitnu lanu shnayim parim. Give us 2 bulls, right? One for me and one for them. Vayivcharu lahem apor ha'echad. They will choose whatever por they want. V'natchuhu. They will cut it into pieces. V'yasimu alo eitzim. They will put it on the wood. V'eish lo yasim. And they will not ignite it with fire because the fire is supposed to come from heaven. V'ani eseh es hapor ha'echad. And I will do the same thing with my other bowl, with the other bowl. V'nasati alo eitzim v'eish lo yasim. And I will also not ignite it with fire. Ukrasem b'shem Elohechem. Now he's talking to the prophets of the Baal. You will call out to your God, your false God. V'yani ekra b'shem Hashem. And I will call out in the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'haya ha'Elohim asher yaneh ba'esh. And whichever God answers with a fire coming down from heaven, who Ho Elohim, that is the true God, the creator and the master of heaven and earth. Let's do a test. Vayan kol ha'am vayomru tov hadavar. So the nation as a whole said, hey, that's a good test. That's going to tell us who is the true creator and master of the universe. So now Eliyahu was speaking to the Am. Now he speaks to the Nevi'ei Habal. Vayomer Eliyahu Nevi'ei Habal. Eliyahu says to the prophets of the Baal, the 450, Bacharu lachem apar echad. Choose your par, asu rishona, and do it first. Getem arabim. You know, you're larger than me in numbers. It's 450 to 1, so I give you the kavod of doing it first. Kiru b'shem Elohechem. Call out in the name of your God. V'yesh lo tasimu, but do not ignite the korban with a fire. The fire must come from heaven. That's the condition of the test. Vayikru es hapar shenasan lahem. And they took the bull. Vayasu, and they shechted it, and they prepared it, and they cut it up. Vayikru b'shem Baal, and they were calling out in the name of Baal, me'abaykrat sarayim, from the morning until mincha time, the afternoon. Lemor, habal aneinu, Baal, answer us. V'yein kol, there was no voice from Baal. V'yein oneh, there was no answer. Vayifaschu al mizbeach asher asa, and they were jumping around on the mizbeach that they built. They built a mizbeach. Vayihi b'tzaharayim, and now it is the afternoon. Chazal actually say it was the zman of mincha, and the chashivas of tfilas mincha is Eliyahu was answered b'shas mincha. Vayahatel b'hem Eliyahu was making fun of them. Vayomer, and Eliyahu says to them, he mocks them, Kiru b'kol gadol, maybe you should shout to the Baal in a louder voice. Ki Elohimu, because he is your God. Ki siach v'chi siglo, maybe siach, he's busy in a conversation. Or sig, or he's running after enemies. V'chi derechlo, or he's traveling, he's on vacation. Ulai yashenu, maybe he's sleeping. V'yikatz, and you need to wake him up. Vayikru b'kol gadol, and he called, and they were calling out louder and louder. V'yisgayidu k'mishpatam. The minhagim of Avodah Zarah would be they would cut themselves, mutilate themselves with knives. That's why the Torah says we're not allowed to do that, because that's a chok of Avodah Zarah. B'charavais, with knives, ramachim, spears. Ad shvoich dam aleim, their blood was spilling out of them. Vayihi kavur tzarayim, and then we went into the afternoon of Yisnavu ad la'leisa mincha, until it was time for the mincha offering in the Beis HaMikdash, which is really mincha ketana, 2.5 hours before nightfall. V'yein kail, v'yein aina, v'yein kashev. There is no voice, there is no answer. Ein kashev, nobody's listening. Vayomer Eliyahu l'chol ha'am. Eliyahu then says to the people, Geshu elai, come to me. Vayikshu kol ha'am elav. And everybody now looked at Eliyahu. Vayirapeh es mizbach Hashem ha'orus. He is now going to repair the mizbeach of Hashem that had been destroyed. Now this does not mean literally, because there was no mizbeach on that site that was destroyed, but it means that because of the Avodah Zarah, the idea of serving Hashem was destroyed, and through this miracle, he is going to bring refuah to the Mizbeach of Hashem. to the service of Hashem that has been destroyed. Vayikach Eliyahu shtei mesrei avanim. So he's going to build a mizbeach. He took 12 stones, kemispar shiftei b'nei Yaakov, equal to the 12 tribes. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu had changed Yaakov's name to Yisrael because Yaakov is heel. Yaakov is in the dirt like the heel. But Yaakov, when Yaakov was victorious against the angel, Hashem said, your name is Yisrael, Sarisa. You have excelled. You have become a melech. Eliyahu is telling them that all of the suffering can change because these 12 Shiftei Yaakov can become Bnei Yisrael. You can achieve Hatzlacha and Bracha and Yeshua through the Shem Yisrael if you do tshuva. Vayivne es Avanim Mizbeach b'Shem Hashem. He built the Avanim into a Mizbeach in the name of Hashem. But to make the miracle even bigger, Vayas ta'ala kebeit sasayim zera savav l'mishkan. He dug a big trench. Now, how he did it himself, that's also a miracle. Unless Vayas means he got other people to help them. But he dug a moat, he dug a trench around the Mizbeach that was big enough to plant 2 saw of seed. Now, this is absolutely huge. A base sasayim is an area of 5,000 square amos. That's 100 amos by 50. 5,000 square amos. How does one man dig a ditch that size? Vayaro chesoetzim. He then set up the wood. Yenatach esapor. He cut up the por. Vayasim aloetzim. He put them on the wood. Vayomer, and now he said, now you'll see why he dug a trench. Milu arba kademayim. Fill up 4 big jugs of water. Big jugs. Vayitzku alola. Pour it on the meat and on the wood, because again that would make a fire less likely to ignite. Vayomer shenu. Do it a second time. Vayishnu. And they did it a second time. Vayomer shaleshu. Do it a third time. Vayashaleshu. They did it a third time. Vayelchu amayim savav l'mizbeach, and the water went all around the mizbeach, and it poured off the mizbeach, and it filled up this big ditch, this big trench. So there's water all over the place. Malei mayim. Vayhi bi'alot mincha, when it was time for the mincha offering, the tamid shel bein orbayim in the Beis Hamikdash. Vayigash Eliyahu hanavi vayayimar, and now he prays. Hashem Elokei Avram Yitzchak Yisrael, because to show that we could achieve godless. Hayayim Yivada, today let it be known, Ki Atah Elokim Yisrael, you are the only God. V'ani Avdecha, and I am your servant. In other words, don't let me be discredited as a Navi, because then I cannot serve you. Uvidvorcha asisi es kol advarim ha'ela, and everything I did is because you gave me rishus. Again, Rashi explains that Ali b'diyemes, even apart from the miracle, Eliyahu Hanavi is violating halacha, because we have a Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, and once there's a Beis Hamikdash, bamas are not permitted, and there's an Isser D'Oraisa of shechting a korban and bringing a korban, whether it's shechutei chutz or halah b'chutz, outside of the Mikdash. In Parshas Acharei Ma'is, you're chayav kares. So, and a Navi cannot change the halacha. A Navi can't even say, oh, Hashem told me that mitzvah no longer applies. That's lo b'shamayim, and the Rambam says, based on those Gemaras, a Navi cannot change the halacha. But if it's a one-time temporary measure, that is called Tairas Shah. And a Navi is permitted to be Eiker, a mitzvah, on a one-time basis, B'Tairas Shah, in order to make a Kiddush Hashem, but it has to come through Nevuah. Even that can't be done because he decides, but the Eibishter can give him permission for Haras Shah. Therefore, Navi is saying, by doing this miracle, you are showing that everything I did was with the haskama of the Ribbono Shel Olam, including the violation of the halacha that you can't be makrif a korban on a bama. And of course, he couldn't do this test in Yehuda in the Beis Hamikdash because the Malchei Yisrael didn't let people go to Yerushalayim. And Eliyahu prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Aneni Hashem, Aneni, answer me Hashem, V'yedu amazak yata Hashem Elokim, that you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is the God. Now then, there's an interesting phrase, V'yata hasibaisa es libam acharanis. And you are the one that caused their heart to go astray. Now, this is a very, very interesting and difficult type of interpretation. It's as if you read the pasuk literally, it's as if Eliyahu Hanavi is saying that you, Hashem, bear responsibility for the sins that Am Yisrael have committed, because you have given them the Yetzer Hara that caused them to sin. So have rachamim, Hashem, because you put into them this kayach hara. Now, this is actually very, very difficult, because we know that for kert, hakol bidei shemayim, everything is decreed by Hashem, chutz mi'eres shemayim, except the decision to fear Hashem, and our job is, we have a Yetzer Hara, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us bechira to overcome our Yetzer Hara. And yet, Eliyahu Hanavi is trying to be mulamed zechus, and basically saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, have rachamim, because you are at least a contributory factor in the fact that they do these averos. Now that's how Rashi learns, and that's how most Mefarshim learn, but you understand that theologically it's a bit of a problem. So because of this, the Radak brings a different interpretation from Efsad Yagain, and the way you read it is this: V'yata hasibaisa es liba macharanis. So even though hasibaisa is past, you turned. Hasibaisa can also mean you will turn. May you turn their heart that is acharanis, that is away from you. May you turn it towards you. So not that Hashem turned our heart away from Him, but rather it's a prayer. May you turn the heart that they have turned away from you, may you turn it towards you by making this miracle. So that avoids the kasha. On the other hand, that requires that hasibaisa be an osid b'makam avar. So grammatically that's a little schwer, but that's the Radak brings b'shem Rav Sajagain. So after Eliyahu prayed, a miracle happened indeed. Vatipol Eish Hashem, a fire from Shemayim came, it consumed the meat, and it consumed the wood, and even the stones, and even the dirt, and the fire burnt the water. That was a miracle. The fire burnt up the water. Vayar kolam, and everybody saw this. Vayiplu al paneim, and they fell on their faces. Vayimru, which we say at the end of Yom Kippur, Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei Hu Elokim, He is the master of this universe. Hashem, Hu Elokim. So Baruch Hashem, Eliyahu Bahar Carmel was the mass tshuva of Am Yisrael, and Al Yidei Kach, they will get rain. Vayomer Eliyahu lahem, Tifsu es Nevi'ei Habal Ish Al Yimolet Mehem Bayitvasim. Now Eliyahu says, look at those 450 prophets of the Baal that have enticed you away from Hashem and have brought curses upon you. Grab them, kill them. They're Ovdei Avodah Zarah. V'yoridem Eliyahu Nach Kishan. He went down to the river valley of Kishan. That's where Devorah fought Sisera. Vayishchatem Sham. So the 450 Nevi'ei Habal were killed. Again, this was not a normal Sanhedrin with a Hasrab. This was a Hirat Shah also. But this was a special Kiddush Hashem that had to be done. Vayomer Eliyahu li'achav. And now Eliyahu says to Achav, Alei achol u'shasei. Now you can eat and drink and rejoice. Ki kayel hamayin geshem. I hear in the distance the rumble of rain. This is after more than 2 years, and well into the third year. Eliyahu says, with this tshuva, I now hear the thunder or the beginnings of rain. Vayala achav lechov l'shtos. Achav got up to eat and drink. Eliyahu went to the top of Mount Carmel to see if he could see the rain clouds. Vayigar arza, and he didn't see anything, so he bowed down to the ground. Vayosem panav ben birkav, he put his face between his knees. This was the meditative position when he needed to kind of get into nevuah, because remember, all the Nevi'im except Moshe, their nevuah came in a trance. And again, Ari Kaplan, Zichrono Livracha, has a book on Jewish meditation, and he talks about these were the various techniques where the Nevi'im would be able to be makasher to nevuah. Vayomer el Narai, Eliyahu said to his shamish, to his youth that assisted him, Aleina habeit derech yam, look towards the west, because the rain would be coming from the Mediterranean. Vayal vayabeit, remember this is Har Carmel, it's actually on the Mediterranean. Vayal vayabeit vayomer ein mum, I don't see any clouds. Vayomer shuv, go back. Sheva pamim, 7 times. The young man went to check for rain clouds. Vayihi bashvius, and it was the 7th time. Vayomer hine of kitana, I see a little cloud in the distance. Kikaf ish olam miyam, it is the size, from a distance, it looks like the size of a human fist, pretty small, coming from the sea, from the west. Vayomer alei emor al Achav, go and tell Achav, esor vareid, saddle your chariot and start going home, so you shouldn't get stuck in the rainfall, going back to Shomron from Har Carmel. Vayihi ad ko v'ad ko, and in the meantime, Hashemayim iskadru biyavim, the skies got thicker and thicker with all sorts of clouds. V'ruach, and there was wind. Vayihi geshem gadol, and there was great amounts of rain. Imagine the simcha of this rain. Vayirkav Achav vayelech Yisrael, and Achav had to ride his chariot in the rain, and he went to the valley of Yisrael. Yisrael, that is where Shomron was. V'yad Hashem haisa el Eliyahu, and a spirit of divine strength was put into Eliyahu physically. Vayishanes masnav, he girded his loins, he belted himself. Vayaratz lifnei Achav ad bayecha Yisrael. It was like the simcha gave him a kayach. The simcha, so many levels of simcha. The simcha of Kiddush Hashem, the simcha of tshuva, the simcha of rain, the simcha of eradicating the evil of Avodah Zarah, the simcha of Hashem Elokim, that gave Eliyahu a divine kayach. And at least for this brief moment, he and Achav are on the same page, because even Achav has hirurei tshuva. So in honor of the Melech, Eliyahu runs in front of the chariot from Mount Carmel all the way to Emek Yisrael. I don't know how many miles that was, but it was a few miles, more than a few miles. And Eliyahu was given almost that superhuman strength, which comes from the simcha in Avodas Hashem. So all in all, this was a great, great day for Am Yisrael, a great day in Ruchnius, a great day in Gashmius. But we will see in the next parak that it was very short-lived. Kol tov.